and joy. I want to share that several weeks ago, Roy, our brother right here, sent out an email link to me with a video. And on the note, he said, this video will definitely be worth 60 minutes of your life. That's pretty daring to say, wouldn't you say? 60 minutes is a lot of time to me. But this video featured, and I'm going to have to go back and ask Albert to help me. Can we go back to the picture of Nick Vujicic, the main one? The first one, if you could just go all the way back to the very first one. It featured this young man, right? And I know that you've seen all the pictures already. And you might have come across him and heard about his story already. But he's a highly sought after motivational speaker all around the world. And the one video that Roy sent me was actually one that I think was produced in Taiwan or China. It was all in Chinese, so you can hear it in your own language. Nick is often captured talking to young people, children, about a couple of things. He always tells them never give up, right? He talks to them about how you can get back up when you fall down, about how each person is special and wonderful, and how life is beautiful and worth living. Nick's messages consistently bring tears to people every single time he shares his story. People are touched by the great hope and strength that he exudes, but also his joy. Nick lights up the room every time he walks in. Now you might be wondering to yourself, well, what's so special about Nick? You had a preview already about what's so special about Nick, right? What's the big deal, we might ask, but a happy guy, a guy that's able to motivate, inspire. So he's a great speaker, you might be thinking. Well, here's the thing, right, that we saw earlier. Nick was born with an incredibly rare condition called tetra amelia syndrome. It means that he was born without arms and without legs. Imagine that for a moment, would you? Imagine all the daily things that children do, like getting out of bed, like brushing your teeth or combing your hair, eating a bowl of cereal. What about hugging your mom and dad or riding a bike? What about reading a book or going to the bathroom? How hard would it be? Maybe it would be even impossible. And what about school? Here's Nick going to school, right? How would you do that? What kind of job could Nick ever hope to have? What kind of life partner? And here's the question. If you were Nick, would you be full of joy or angry and bitter? Would you experience deep gratitude for, wow, what an exciting life you live, your life without arms and legs, such that you could share your gratitude with others? Or would you be depressed and despondent? Would you be able to light up the room every time you entered? Would you have words of hope for the children of God? Now, Nick is a lot like the Apostle Paul, right? Don't you think? Paul has been through so much since the day he came to Christ and he decided he would become a missionary of the good news. He's been shipwrecked, beaten, homeless, left for dead on the open sea. And now he's chained up in a Roman prison cell and facing the prospect of execution. Yet his letter to the Philippians is full from the beginning to the very end with joy. Remember how I told you on that first week, and Becky reminded us again how Eugene Peterson, the translator to the Message, said this is Paul's happiest letter. And here he is in our scripture lesson today saying, rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always. Not when you can or if you feel like it or if everything happens to be going well and there's a rainbow out in the sky, right? But always rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always, for the Lord is near. Don't worry about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. And here's the thing, the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Like Nick, I want to say that Paul isn't telling the people to do something he doesn't do himself. You know, like do as I say, not as I do kind of guy. No, he's saying these things as someone who practices what it is to be joyful, prayerful, grateful, and at peace himself. So here's our questions, right, brothers and sisters? How do they do it? I always ask that question because I always want to know. I want to live the life of Christ. How? How does he do it? How can they just toss their anxieties aside as it seems to be and rejoice? How do they even find the inner strength to encourage and comfort other people when they are experiencing so much? We might wonder, what's their secret? So here's the thing. Paul, the ever-practical theologian, doesn't hide the secret. He tells us how. And he gives us 3 disciplines to practice. So here's the thing. We have to practice them if we want to enter into the secret. And the first one is this. What do you think it is? Pray. Pray, right? It's one that we talk about so often that you might think, whatever, I already know this one. But pray, friends, and I want to say it again, pray. Talk to God about everything. Yesterday I was at the Mandarin Fellowship and someone said to me, but I don't know how to pray. And I said, just talk, like you're talking to a friend. And I told her a couple of different ways, but talk to God about everything, small or big. Give over to God what is weighing you down. It makes me think of Charlie. Always in prayer, what does he do? He has us lift things up in Yvonne in choir practice, and he has them let it go. Let it go. And then trust God to respond. But listen also. Don't forget to listen. So we have pray, right? That's your first discipline. The second thing is, what do you think? Give thanks. The funny thing I was reading about Nick is he says, I'm thankful all the time. I'm looking with gratitude at the world. Nick is able to give thanks for his condition. Why? Because God is using him because of his condition. Paul turns around in the prison and gives thanks. Why? Because he says it gives him the opportunity to share the gospel of Jesus Christ with a whole new group of people. How's that for seeing the world through the eyes of Christ, huh? What can you give thanks for right now? What can you give thanks for? So that's our second practice. The first one was what? Second one? Third one? Focus, people. Focus. It's estimated by some people that we have between 10,000 and 60,000 thoughts floating through our mind every single day. If I take that lower number, 10,000 number, that means 417 thoughts are computing through our mind right now. You're probably thinking a thought just as I'm speaking. And that computes to over 3.6 million thoughts a year. What we think about matters, and Paul gives us an idea of what to focus on. Not the negative and hurtful, not the things that are wrong or unjust, not the problematic, and not what discourages, but the very opposite. What's true and honorable, pure and pleasing, commendable, excellent. Think on these things, brothers and sisters. Talk on these things and share on these things. I want to share with you this past week how I've had a personal experience, conviction about this. Because I noticed that when I was talking to Stephen, it would often move into the negative. And it became a matter of discipline to talk about certain things in ways that were positive rather than seeing it from the darkness, right? And it's a discipline. So we have 3 that we're going to try out. The first one is to pray. Second one is to give thanks. The third one is to focus on the positive. On the possibilities, right? The Jesuit priest Teilhard de Chardin once said, joy is the infallible sign of God. As we exercise our spiritual muscles and discipline ourselves to do those 3 things, pray, give thanks, and focus, my hope and prayer is that you will experience such a deep sense of joy bubbling up from inside you and blessing you now and always. May the people of God say, Amen.